What's up, guys? It's the Bluebloods coming at y'all with another episode in our SEC in 30 days theme for the month of June. And we are joined by Ole Miss football insider, beat writer for the Oxford Eagle, Jake Thompson, is on the show today. And I just want to say I appreciate you joining us, man.
Hey, Zach, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. So we got to start with last season, and it was a season in which the Rebels finished 5-5, but there were a lot of games where they could have probably closed it out and won the game. A lot of people think that 5-5 record isn't indicative at how this team played at times this year. But for you, thinking about your own personal expectations, did this past season meet, exceed, or fall short of your preseason expectations?
I think with how well or how not so well that defense played, and everybody kind of knew it was the weak point of that team heading in. And Lane Kiffin's first year, you didn't get a spring, you really didn't get a summer till late August once they finally realized when they would actually start a season. And going 5-5 in the SEC, no non-conference kind of cupcake teams to get you to like 8 wins or something like you normally do. And those, like you said, coulda, shoulda, woulda wins against Auburn where they had a chance. Even LSU in that monsoon, they had a chance. So, they were probably a tackle or a touchdown from having a better bowl than they did even at the Outback Bowl. So, I think they overshot expectations, which has probably put a lot of maybe extra expectation onto 2021, knowing it's a normal season, it's a normal year, a normal schedule, and you only got those 8 SEC games to kind of worry about. And I think that there's a lot of excitement, but no, it was kind of like watching the Saints. They had the offense to score the points, but it was that defense. What kind of defense was going to get those stops? And I think it's very similar to that. But a normal offseason, a spring that they got to have, and kind of now they'll start soon in a couple of weeks. A normal offseason or summer program in the fall camp in August. I think this program's maybe a year ahead of where they thought they might be, just given all those hurdles that everybody had last year with COVID and at least they got to play 10 games. Not most people, some teams didn't even get that. So I think Kiffin may be kind of playing with house money at the moment.
Absolutely. And with COVID, the first year head coaches had it the worst. You don't even get to, Lane Kiffin didn't even get to hit the recruiting trail until this month. So, I can't imagine how hard it was. But the number one thing, you mentioned it in your answer, you have to rebuild this defense. I believe Ole Miss had like the 14th of ranked scoring offense, but it was like the 118th scoring defense. On the flip side, you cover this team, you know the landscape, you know the recruiting. What would you do to rebuild, retool this Ole Miss defense?
I think what they did, they got a good recruiting class. A lot like 13 early enrollees who showed up in January, and 10 of them or so were defense, which is, that, like I said, everybody's defense is key, but they were playing with more unique strategy. You were recruiting a lot of guys maybe they didn't see. Maybe those kids never took an official visit in the early years of their high school career before spring of 2020 came. And, also they could have come when Matt Luke was still the head coach. Lane Kiffin may not have even been the head coach. And so they were playing with trying to keep guys. Were these the guys we want? Who do we want to go after? And so it was, like you said, especially every new coach had unique kind of difficulties, but getting that defense in, and we saw some improvements. It was kind of a vanilla spring, even though everybody was kind of had all eyes on the defense with so many early enrollees coming in out of high school. So it's a lot of the spring games you don't really see a lot of bells and whistles and tricks, and it was also just 2 kind of normal quarters before they did some stuff after the 2 normal quarters with JV or they go down the depth chart to see what they have, but. No, hitting that defense, I think, is what they had to do and what they need to do. Now it's one of those, did they guess right? Did their scouts kind of guess right? Did you get the right guys? Because that's always the question. You get them here, but do they do that 3-star, 4-star, 5-star stuff you expect them to do?
Right. And one position Lane Kiffin nailed directly on the head is quarterback. Matt Corral, arguably, I think in every single preseason thing I've looked at, he's probably the top ranked SEC returning quarterback. Him and JT Daniels seem to kind of fight over that position. What makes him such a special QB, and what are your expectations for Corral in this offense going into 2021?
This is kind of maybe not as crazy because I've seen it more as we kind of gear into football previews and those think pieces. But I think Corral, if he can not have those Arkansas games where, he throws 6 or 7 interceptions after he has like 6 or 7 touchdowns the week before, if he can eliminate that, I think he can have maybe not win it, because there seems to be, Heisman can't talk, especially a quarterback from Ole Miss. It's tough unless you're Eli Manning. It's tough to kind of get into that conversation. But I think Matt Corral has a chance to be very special this season. I know JT Daniels kind of that 1A or 1B to his 1A, or if you want to flip it, kind of that way. But I think just from seeing a little bit I saw of JT Daniels last year, I think Corral, in terms of on the field and development, I think he's ahead of JT Daniels. I think Corral has a chance to kind of be that crown jewel QB of the SEC conference.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, he was torching teams, and like you said, if he can avoid those turnovers, you can see that huge thing. It's almost like, I don't think they're similar quarterbacks, but kind of Johnny Manziel when he first came out, everyone was like, he's got to avoid the turnovers, and then you saw he did avoid the turnovers, and he had that Heisman campaign. But it all starts with Lane Kiffin. I mean, he gets brought to Oxford, probably, I would argue, the biggest hire of last cycle, coming in, everyone's hype. He's on social media. He has the persona, everything like that. What has been his real impact just in terms of coaching, the interest around campus? How big of a hire was bringing Lane Kiffin in, and what are your expectations for him moving forward at Ole Miss?
Well, it's kind of start back in December of 2019 when they announced the hire. The worst kept secret of that weekend, as we're watching him finish up at FAU. Everybody was just kind of waiting for that press release to roll out, and when it did, then 2 days later, he lands at the Ole Miss airport on tarmac, and it's like the Beatles have hit, New York, and he's kissing babies and shaking hands, and a lot of excitement, more than I think there has been overall and nationally around the program since, when Ole Miss would beat Bama 2 years in a row, and Hugh Freeze kind of had him at that level of making the SI cover all the time. And then you have all that excitement, and you kind of have to taper it because it's December. You got a whole 8-10 months or so before you're going to play again, and then the world ended, and it just kind of stopped in March, and you didn't know, was there going to be a season? Was there? And then there was one, but it wasn't a full stadium, 25% or whatever it was. And so there was excitement, but it wasn't what everybody thought it was going to be, of the Grove being packed and just feeding off of Lane Kiffin and that social media personality that he has. But you've kind of seen it build back up again after what they did at the Outback Bowl against Indiana. It's kind of like it jump-started it to where it was the year before, where he had just been announced as the coach. And we've seen it kind of grow over the summer. They were finally able to do what they call Rebel road trips, where they go out to see fan bases throughout the state. And there was, it's the first time he's gotten to see fans outside of that tarmac. It's the first time he's been able to, and it was the first time that we've seen him not on a computer screen and since February of 2020. So it's just kind of like we've hit the reset button on all this, covering him and the fan base. And I think with knowing the Grove's going to be packed and knowing what that kind of does to kind of start the day here at Ole Miss, and then the expectations of just what this team might can do, having a chance to get to a better bowl game than they did, and just see what happens, and maybe have a chance to get to Atlanta. It's kind of like now this is his first season in terms of expectations and hype, and last year was just kind of like that dress rehearsal.
Right. I got 2 follow-ups on that. One, you mentioned there's a chance that he can be that guy to get Ole Miss to Atlanta. I know they had some chances, back when Hugh Freeze was there. How big of, I guess, a moment would it be for Ole Miss to get to Atlanta, win an SEC title? And let's just be honest with each other. If you win the SEC title, you're in the college football playoff. How big would that be for Oxford, for this program?
Just on the out, just kind of big picture, it would be massive, because Hugh Freeze they had those chances with the wins over Alabama, gave him that chance to get in there minus some hiccups at the end of those seasons. And then before that, it was Eli Manning. That was the last chance they really had a shot. Maybe that one season with Jevin Sneed when they got up to number 4 in the country before that South Carolina game, and it all kind of went south. But Ole Miss has just never been. It's been like that's nice. You think it's October and you have a chance to go to Atlanta. That's nice. And then, of course, it all comes out in the wash. And your Alabamas, your LSU's, the usual suspects are there, and Ole Miss is fighting for maybe a Sugar Bowl appearance or something else. But I just feel like this is the chance for for Lane Kiffin, also for him, just to kind of show that he can be that coach that can kind of finally, knock off the master. That is, Nick Saban. Everybody's wondering who's going to be the former assistant coach to take down Nick Saban. And a lot of people feel it's going to be Kiffin somewhere. It may not be here. It could be here this year, but he'll be the one, because he's always been one that's maybe been the most in the mind of Saban and learning, sitting under that tree. But if they could get to that, knock off Alabama and go through the rest of the gauntlet that is the SEC West and get to Atlanta, I think that kind of solidifies Ole Miss as maybe, not back, but as a chance to be that perennial contender if they can keep, continued success is key. But it also may validate Kiffin a little bit, for those who still feel like, he's still just that Kiffin we remember at Tennessee, or SR the Cal that got left at the tarmac by the whole team. I think it's a chance to prove a lot for him and the program.
Absolutely. And then the other flip side too, I mean, this is funny. This will be posted, I think, on day 2 of the new NIL laws, where we're seeing players roll out brands and everything. Listen, if there's ever a coach I would want in my corner about promoting myself on social media, about promoting my brand, it'd be Lane Kiffin. He's connected to the players in a way that some of these other coaches aren't. One, what is Ole Miss doing to kind of help these players ease into the NIL? And is Lane Kiffin taking a hands-on approach because he's such a big social media figure in terms of college football head coaches?
Ole Miss is, Mississippi was kind of that second state to pass a law like Florida. I think Florida was first, but come tomorrow, I guess midnight tonight, whenever they say it kicks in on July 1st, everybody has a chance to kind of stake their claim. And Ole Miss has been on the forefront of proactive of that, as they've set up a whole system, and they've sent out a release a month or so ago about what they're doing, and AD Keith Carter is, so they're meeting with players, and they have kind of a group that's helping them make sure that they're all following the rules, because there are still rules to this. It's not, it's not the Wild West like a lot of people are afraid it may be or become, but they've been kind of tutoring. It's almost like the kids are going to summer school for real school, and then they've been taking these NIL kind of seminars or classes so they can know come tomorrow what they can say yes to or what they can't say yes to, or who's attached to whatever offer, or can John Reese Plumlee go do a used car commercial in Oak Grove, Hattiesburg. It's that stuff. So I think it's a positive. And like you said, I don't know what all Lane Kiffin can do. Twitter, I think he can promote stuff. I don't know how much he's involved with saying, hey, go do this, go do that. I think that's a lot of still some of the compliance rules. But no, like you're right. I wouldn't want another head coach besides him because of the presence he has. Michael Leach, maybe, because he's just kind of that wacky guy on Twitter. But Lane Kiffin is a guy who won't promote me and saying, hey, Matt Corral or Jerry Neely is going to do a signing this weekend, and just kind of retweet that and get it out there to everybody.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the NIL looks like, what coaches can use it to their benefit. I have a feeling Lane Kiffin's saying, look at what I can do for you on the recruiting trail. And that's where I want to get to next. The number 17 class last year for a first-year head coach with no recruiting, anything like that, still a top 20 class, headlined by some major JUCO pickups as well, and some top 100 prospects. For you, though, what were the biggest positional needs for Ole Miss, and who are you kind of eyeing as some instant impact guys from this 2021 class?
Well, I was kind of hoping that just kind of on a downer part of the topic, Dink Jackson has entered the transfer portal, which was a big pickup part of that, and that just kind of came out over the past couple of days. And now he hasn't, kind of said I'm going somewhere yet, so I don't know if it's one of those where he's just testing the waters and he may come back by August if he feels like he has a shot here. But it's defense, especially losing Jacquez Jones when he went to Kentucky this past month. I mean, that's a massive gap in leadership on defense when everybody was hoping that defense had kind of taken that next step. And now you're leaning on some young guys to come up there. And, it feels like maybe that may set the defense back, but you never know. There's some of these young guys, especially those that you're talking about, they have a chance now to come in July and kind of make a name for themselves, and see if that D-line and that linebacker core can get better, because leaving it up to the secondary that was the issue, was giving up those big plays.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it all starts with recruiting, but Ole Miss has some players that are on this roster that really haven't had a chance to shine, that should see the field throughout spring practice. As we go into summer workouts, who are some guys that were already on this roster that you were eyeing to be potential breakout players in this upcoming season?
I was really looking offense for sure is looking at some of these receivers to because they're missing a big name on that receiving core, and Elijah Moore, who's heading to New York with the Jets, and that's the big question: is Jonathan Mingo going to step up? Is they're getting Braylon Sanders back because of kind of the COVID thing, and getting him back, and who else is going to step up? Because the running backs are set. I think you got Jerry Neely coming back, and you got Snoop. So it's who's going to become that next Elijah, and it may be one of those where it's by committee, because that's a big gap. And I think you're looking at tight end with the loss of Kenny Yaboya, who's also at the Jets as well. So we talk about the high-powered offense, but I think the breakout players may come from that tight end room, that wide receiver room, just because nobody knows who's going to step up and fill those major production holes from last year.
Right. And I mean, it's going to be interesting because I feel like with the first, not really a first-year head coach, but he's kind of in his first year, and he didn't get that summer to really evaluate the talent, that fall, that spring. So I'm really interested to see what Ole Miss looks like going into 2021. But that brings us to the season. I know we're recording in June, man, real early, but I'm looking at the schedule. It's always difficult when you have LSU, Alabama on the schedule. It's brutal. SEC West is just a horrible place to live. But for you right now on June 30th, what is the ceiling and or floor for those 2021 Ole Miss Rebels?
It doesn't matter how stacked the roster may be or who's coaching them. It just seems Ole Miss always floats around at the Vegas odds and scorebooks. That's 7-5, 8-4. That just seems to be where they live. No matter if they have the potential to go 9-3 or 10-2, when they've done that, it's kind of quote unquote surprise people because they picked them 7 wins or 8 wins. But I think they have a shot, especially when you get to kind of build up the win total with these non-conference games. Take out Louisville because that's a tough one to kick off the season. But the ones they have after that, Austin Peay and the Tulane games, and I think 9-3, 10-2 is honestly gettable if everything kind of clicks. I know that's the cliche for every team, but I think 9-3. 10-2 is possible, and Ole Miss has a chance to have a shot to not have to be beat up at the end of the year, because after I think the Auburn game, they're home they're at least in Mississippi the rest of the season, because they have I think 3 straight home games, and then the Egg Bowl is just 2 hours south and Starkville against Mississippi State, so they have a chance not to have to hit the road on a Friday, have to get on a plane or a bus, and so they can rattle off some big wins, get those upsets against the Auburns and the LSUs and the Alabamas. They have a chance to be sitting really good come November.
Right, and I mean that kind of brings me. You mentioned there a home game. I've been to Oxford. I've seen the Grove. I came in 2016 when Auburn came to town. It was an exciting game, electric night game. They wore those. I think Ole Miss has the most underrated unis in all of college football. The baby blue helmets, the red. It looks clean. I really love them. But for those who haven't been yet, man, what makes Oxford Vaught-Hemingway Stadium such a unique environment on game days? And we can include the Grove in there, because if you go to Ole Miss, guys, you got to check out the Grove.
No, it's I think, and the Grove will be even more special than it already was, which is probably tough to top, because it's just one of those bucket list national college football things people want to go to or told to go to. But taking that Grove away last year, for obvious reasons with COVID, not being able to be around mass gatherings, and then I think I put a story out that it was kind of a foregone conclusion because everything else was opening up and the stadium was going to be 100%. But when we put out that the Grove was going back to, as they phrased it, pre-pandemic levels, it was just like they were ready to party. I think people were ready to set up their tents that day. But no, that sets the tone, especially if it's which I think we're getting more of, just because they want Kiffin in prime time and TV stations want Kiffin on their stations. You're going to have a chance to get there early on Saturday and set up and tailgate and have breakfast, lunch. It's a palpable thing when you see that Grove and how full it is, and it just kind of builds and kind of crescendos right when the Walk of Champions starts 2 hours before. But with the full Vaught-Hemingway, especially since they bowled in that stadium a few years ago now, if the fans are clicking on all cylinders come kickoff, I know it's not a Neyland Stadium or even over at Alabama, but it's a special place, and the team can just feed off of that. It feels like this has always been a program that feeds off what's happening behind them in the stands. If that crowd is in it and with them, no matter the score, they seem to just suddenly kind of start rolling. It's a tough place to be. I mean, I consider it one of the top 3 college football game day settings that there is.
Hey, listen, I don't want to dox any stadium because we have a lot of fans from other schools on here. I've been to a 90+ K SEC stadium that did not even rival how loud Ole Miss was that one night that I went down there in 2016. I don't want to make anyone mad, but Ole Miss is a top 3 stadium I've been to. And I've been to LSU, I've been to Bama, Georgia, Clemson. Let y'all figure it out. Ole Miss is up there, man. That place was deafening. I think y'all scored first. And it just like erupted. And I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, this isn't that big of a stadium. I wasn't expecting it. And it's beautiful. It's the nicest campus I've ever been to, man. So, guys, if you haven't been, get down to Ole Miss. Go to a game. I won't regret it. But, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, talking some Ole Miss football. I'm excited for the season, excited to see what Ole Miss does. But where can our listeners find you, man? Well, social media, Oxford Eagle, everything like that.
Our website's oxfordeagle.com. You can find me on Twitter at Jake Thompson OE. I try to be Twitter smart, snarky. I don't usually leave that to the professionals, but no, that's come next month once we hit up media days. It'll be a lot of football on both of those platforms.
Absolutely. So, guys, go follow Jake. Go check out the Oxford Eagle and stay tuned to Ole Miss football, man. He's going to be one of the most exciting programs in the country in these next few years. But, guys, this actually wraps up our SEC in 30 days, man. This wraps up all the conferences we've done back since February. So make sure to go find your favorite team, check out that episode, and check out even some of your rivals teams. I promise y'all won't want to miss them. But, guys, we will be back later this week with some more episodes. But for Jake, myself, and the Bluebloods, guys, we are out.